Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Love Your People podcast. I am Tim Schieffer. I'm the Employee Experience Solution Line Leader here at ITA Group, and I'm the MC for today's event. We've got a fantastic episode today lined up for you, and we get a chance to visit with Mike McFall, the co-founder and co-CEO of Big B Coffee. Our session is going to be a great opportunity to learn from an industry leader on how to care for employees. And it's also a great opportunity for us all to learn from one another as we at ITA Group really value attendee engagement. You are encouraged to engage through our chat area, our Q&A area on the podcast platform. We're also going to be giving away 2 Amazon gift cards for $50 each as a prize for those who are participating actively within the chat and Q&A area. So be sure to get your questions in and be sure to participate in the group discussion, as we really appreciate it. With that in mind, let me get the group started with a community learning question. You can see the question on the screen. Go ahead and share your thoughts in chat. We'd love to hear from you. Also, feel free to drop in the chat where you're listening from and the role you play within your organization. It's been really exciting for John and myself to get an idea of where people are engaging with our podcast, as well as understanding the roles that we're connecting with. So we really appreciate it. The question is, what strategies have you seen create a stronger sense of community between employees and leadership teams within your experiences? So get chatting. Not only does it enter you into a drawing for a gift card, it also sparks ideas and meaningful discussion within our leadership community. So we really appreciate it. Again, remember to go ahead and submit your questions. We'll be following at the end with Q&A with Mike, and we'll address those as many as possible at the end. All right, so enough housekeeping from me. I want to get started. I'm excited to introduce our host, John Duisberg. John does such a great job of setting the stage and leading a great conversation with our featured guests. So, John, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim, and welcome everyone for another awesome episode of the Love Your People podcast series. I am your host. My name is John Duisberg, and I'm super excited today. Mike McFall, co-CEO of Big B Coffee. We're gonna jump into all things, his journey, but also talk about the franchise model that Mike has really adopted to scale the business, and how that impacts his mission to love their people well. But super excited today. For everyone in the audience who this may be your first time, or you don't have as much background on the Love Your People podcast series. So just to kind of share how we got here, this journey, to catch you up. So at ITA Group, we actually design and implement employee engagement recognition programs for organizations all around the world, right? And through that process, we just get this inside look at what leaders are doing to really invest in their people to create that sense of connection, community, appreciation, ultimately to help attract and keep the best people so that they can be successful at business. And as we started to learn these amazing things that these leaders are doing, we just said, hey, we need to put a spotlight on this. We want to be able to share these stories, and with the whole goal is to help you, take ideas and some of these learnings that perhaps could help you inside of your own organization, with your own teams as you look to be a people first leader as well. So that's our hope today, is to just really learn from Mike's experiences and his journey that can benefit you and your team and your organization. That being said, we'd love to hear from you. So, keep the chat moving. We want to hear questions. We're gonna carve out time at the end of our interview with Mike today to give you the opportunity to ask questions directly with Mike. And so we want to make sure this is meaningful for you. So keep that chat going. But without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce Mike McFall, co-CEO, co-founder of Big B Coffee. Mike, we've had over the last few weeks got a chance to know you a little bit more. So you have an incredible story. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I want you to share it with our audience. But literally pouring coffee on the ground floor, boots on the ground, to co-CEO, best-selling author, and just an incredible vision for how you can invest in people to really be successful at business. So I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you today. But please, for our audience, would love to hear from you. Maybe share a little bit about Bigbee and your journey and how we got here today.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, my my experience in the world here is, in 5 days, my company turns 30 years old, and so I've been doing this since I was 23. I did start as a barista in our very first store, and
Wow.
my business partner, Bob Fish, he owned that first store. I worked for him. And then he and I ended up, it's a bit of lore in our world today, but he and I ended up going for about a 4 hour walk 6 months into my engagement working with him. And at the end of that walk, we shook hands and agreed to form a new company. And that company would be the company that we would use to expand and grow our brand. And there were three of us involved at that point. We were all equal partners. We bought out our third partner in 2012, and it's been Bob and I, owning the company since. Where we are today currently, we are a franchise company. Our stores, it's 100% franchised. And so our company exists to support our franchise owner in developing their business, in growing the asset, in growing the investment that they put in pursuit and in support of them living a life that they love, and having that asset available to them to do that. So that's what we do. Our whole company is focused on that. Right now, we currently have 431 stores open. We're eclipsing, I think, someone told me the other day, around 6,000 employees total within the system. And so that's our company. I had a conversation with my mother's best friend the other day, who I'm
Okay.
very close to, and she said, Mike, what's amazing is I think Bigbee might be like the third or fourth most interesting thing you've done in your life. And so we won't be able to get into all the rest of that stuff,
Okay.
but Bigbee is a pretty interesting story, and it is my life, right? It's what I do, and yeah, I love it. I love the opportunities that it provides me. I love being able. My whole company is built around supporting others and pursuing their dreams, and that's what inspires me.
I love it. And I know part of the mission, your purpose through Bigbee is to love your people, to love the community that you serve, and to create joy, create happiness, to unlock potential. Um, you mentioned the franchise path. So tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me, how does that work, right? Like, how do you how do you invest in people and try to create that, live out that mission when you're, essentially one step removed from the people through the
Sure.
franchise, right?
Well, I think, early on, the franchise business model was appealing to us because so much of our mentality is about coaching, teaching, mentoring others. And so when you dive into the idea of building a franchise, I always talk about that's a really critical mentality to have. And the franchise owner is independent. It's their business, and our job is to support them in building their business. In terms of how we interact with the stores, most of our work is working through the franchise owner. We have some programs in place that we invite the baristas to be involved in, for sure, and we're being very deliberate right now about working on building some other kinds of tools to build the community of baristas that we can play a part in. It's about building a community for them, but that we can uh, um, be engaged in that and bring value to them through that community.
Got it. Yeah. And one of the things that so just my own personal experience, this isn't exactly the franchise model, but it's my own, how I'm kind of connecting the dots. But so my company was actually acquired by ITA Group just about a year ago. And I went from, running a company and having, essentially kind of direct guidance on the strategy and actions to kind of having to lead through influence versus, having that direct report relationship. Right. And so I kind of think of it as somewhat, there's some similarities potentially there where you're influencing your franchise owners in terms of your mission, your values, your purpose, how the model, right? But ultimately they then need to take it and, activate that, right? And implement that and bring it to life, like on the ground, so to say, right? But is that a fair kind of how
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it? Or I just wanted, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have spent a lot of time and a lot of energy around bringing value to the franchise owner uh, by building community for them as well. And for example, we created what are called forums, and these forums are small groups of franchise owners that we facilitate uh, them coming together. They come together on a monthly basis, and think of it as like a support group for owners. But
Yeah.
through those mechanisms, we're able to bring them all kinds of our content, our values, the ways that we think about the business, and then they take that and they take that into their world. But more importantly, they work together as a forum, as a 6 to 8 member forum, to uh, to learn from each other's best practices along with ours. And
Yeah.
this is the piece of the franchise business model that I think is the most powerful piece of the business model that doesn't get talked about. And that is, a franchise brings you a brand, it brings you a product, it brings you a system. But the fourth thing it brings you that nobody seems to talk about so much in the world is it brings you a community. And it brings you a whole bunch of people that are doing the same thing you're doing day in and day out that have a vested interest in your success. And so when you're a franchise owner, when you're a franchisee in a system, how actively you engage that community is, in my opinion, one of the more critical factors on whether you're going to be successful or not. And by engaging that community, we're a big part of that community and
Yeah.
influencing that community. So that's how we do that, and it's all opt-in. The franchise owners opt into that to the work that we're doing and the things that we're doing. But hopefully, through influence, we can impact more and more of those of the leaders in the system.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how you're really kind of leaning into the community kind of part of the pillar there. Because I know as I'm just again, I'm kind of like in my mind translating to outside of the franchise world, we've got all these managers who are running different teams, divisions, departments, and so forth. And chances are, how I'm handling a situation as a manager might be something that another manager could benefit from or learn from, right? And vice versa, right? And so
Right.
like how do you create how do you kind of tap into that power of community? One, just to, hey, you got a support system, you got someone you can talk to, but two, to learn,
Yeah.
right? And to learn from. So no, that's really interesting. Just kind of and it seems like, yeah, of course, right? But you're right. Like I don't hear people talking about the community aspect and the value from that.
No, and just a quick story. I had a friend of
Yeah.
mine involved in another franchise, and he was about 5 years in. He was doing reasonably well, and he mentioned to me he wasn't going to go to their annual convention. And I said, "Whoa, hang on, time out. Like, you're not going to go to the annual convention?" He's like, "No, I go I've gone 5 years in a row. It's always kind of the same thing. It's no." And I said, "Well, hang on. Let's look at this from a different perspective. Why don't you call your favorite contact at the headquarters and ask them who the 5 most successful franchisees in the system are? And then what I want you to do is I want you to go to the annual convention and I want you to become friends with all 5 of those people. And these 5 people will teach you more than you could ever want to know about running that particular business. And that's being, you have to be proactive in that engagement, and you have to seek out the right people, the people that are doing it the way you want to, values aligned with yourself and so on. But to me, it's a proactive way to engage. And you, as a leader, you have to proactively engage, right? You can't, you have to proactively engage other leaders in their learning and
Yeah.
yeah, learning from you in terms of how you do things. And you don't take it word for word, but it influences your approach to your group.
Yeah. That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
power of the community there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it makes total sense. And it's like maybe easy to forget, but yeah, like why wouldn't I want to go learn from the top five leaders, right? So no, I appreciate that story, Mike. And so and it's kind of a good segue to the next area that I wanted to, just learn more from you about, which is I know that, creating joy, happiness, creating fulfillment, for your franchisees and the employees of the franchisees is super important. The big question is, how do you do that, right? Like what are some of the examples or some of the best practices that you found most effective? And I know that the human centric business model is kind of part of your operating manifesto, so to say. It's how you approach the business. So tell us more about that, and just kind of give us more context about how that is done within Bigby.
Well, I mean, it starts with working hard to make sure that we're aligned with our franchise owners. With we call them owner operators in our world. And when we are values aligned with the franchise owner, the world is like sort of magical. Like it all just seems to work really, really well. And one of the things that we did proactively early, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, is my partner and I agreed that I would start to write a book series, and that book series way for people to engage us, hopefully read the content, and then they decide whether or not they are aligned with how we want to run the business and our values, and then they can opt in or opt
Yeah.
out. Right. And so that was a major project. The books are right here. It's Grind and Grow. It's
Yeah.
2 books. It's going to end up being a 4-book series. But and so that's really, really important. We also have been really deliberate about developing content that we make available to our community. And so we have a curriculum that we have built. It's part of this that's called Life Lab, and that curriculum is made available to anybody inside of Big Nation, is what we call it. And these are courses. They're 6-week courses, and they're all free. We don't charge anybody in Big Nation to go through them. And we call them the 4 pillars of building a life you love. And that is our purpose. Our purpose in the world is to support you, no matter who you are. If we interact with you in some way, to support you in building a life that you love. And so the 4 pillars are the 4 pillars are: one, it's knowing who you want to be, which is a visioning module. The other one, there's one called Exceeding Your Basic Needs, and that is one around personal finance. There's one called Having a Sense of Vitality. And then the 4th one is Creating a Sense of Belonging. And so each one of these modules, courses, is built that we believe that you have to have these 4 areas reasonably well uh, uh, ironed out, figured out in your own life in order to really begin to build a life that you love. And so that's something that we do, that we're quite we're deliberate about that. We've been working that now. I think we're in year 4 of having those courses available to our franchise community. Another thing that we've done is, you can see there's a gray book right here behind my head. That's something called the Moonshot Guidebook, and that's a visioning tool that we make available to our community as well. That the you know we that started as an internal tool for our own employees, and then some franchise owners got their hands on it, and we developed that and made it a little bit more consumable from a broader perspective, and then eventually something called Conscious Capitalism Press reached out to us and wanted to publish it as a book, and so that is now available. It's available on Amazon and so on. But it's really meant to be an internal piece for our own community to engage visioning, and like visioning to us is a really important part of our pursuit in supporting people in their pursuit of building lives that they love.
Yeah. Yeah. So you shared a lot there. There's a
Yeah.
couple, no, it's awesome. There's a couple things that, that jumped out at me that, I wanted to touch on. The first, you kind of started with how when you have the alignment with the franchise owner, everything's magical, right? And I imagine the opposite is, you could say, like, when it's not the alignment, whatever, however you want to describe it, it's not magical. Okay. And so you put, out there your beliefs, right? Your purpose, your mission, and with the goal to attract individuals who understand what they're kind of signing up for, so to say. Like, they're buying into saying, hey, yeah, that does align, philosophically with who I want to be and how I want to work right now. And I kind of think of it, as you were talking, I'm like, as an organization, as a leader, I want to make sure that every person who's potentially going to come in and work inside of our organization, who's going to be hired, they understand exactly who we are, right?
Yeah.
So making sure we're putting our values out there, our mission out there, our purpose out there, that they have a good understanding of, what they're kind of like joining, right? To make sure that fit is there. Because then when it is, man, it all just feels great. But when it's not, it's everyone's going to struggle, right? And so it just kind of highlighted to me, like, wow, like, as an organization, to be really intentional, not just internally, but actually externally. Here's who we are as an organization. Here's why we do what we do. Here's our purpose. Here's why we exist, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully the goal being, hey, I'm attracting people that, have that sense of alignment.
Yeah, I call that, I've got a keynote that I give, and one of the 3 areas of the keynote, I call it building a I go through this whole sort of storytelling around when you were a child and building a tree fort, and like you and all your friends would climb up into the tree fort, and everybody would be their favorite superhero, right? And it's very elaborate, but I talk about, in that tree fort, one of the first things that you do with your friends, if you remember back in the days, you pick your finger, and it's like a blood bond, and you do that, and you talk about the rules of engagement, or the code of honor that you have amongst your friends in that tree fort, and how you're gonna. And so what I talk about as a leader is, you have to do that with your team. That you have to have your rules of engagement. You have to have that moment when you prick your finger and take the blood oath, but what you have to do as leader is articulate what that is. And to me, that is your values. And the values that you prescribe in the world are the rules of engagement that your team is all agreeing to when they come on board. And so when leaders talk about values, it's like, that is such an important part of being a leader, is making sure that you have values alignment, and no time spent on that is wasted time. The more you do that, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I'm getting excited. I get passionate about this topic as well. Um, another thing that I wanted to highlight, kind of going back to the human centric business model, is this idea that every person brings a unique skill set, a unique perspective. They bring their passion in their own way, right? And as a leader, part of my maybe one of my most important jobs or roles is to unlock that skill set that that person brings, and then allow them to have that impact, right? For the team, for the organization. And, that just stuck with me. I just, in our conversations, I thought, wow, like that's what I need to be doing, right? Is unlocking the potential of our team and having that impact. But so tell us more about that,
Yeah.
stories, how do you go about that? I was so attracted to that when I heard you share it.
Well, I call that how I reference that is that everybody comes to you with a toolbox, and everyone has certain tools in that toolbox. And oftentimes I feel like leaders think that everyone should have a full toolbox and that all the tools should be like sharp and ready to be used. But the fact of the matter is people come to you and they've got certain tools in their toolbox that are really well honed and they're really good at using them. And then they've got other tools in their toolbox that are like rusty and 20 years old and haven't been touched. And
Yeah.
and what we need to do as leaders is we need to understand one that the expectation can't be that everybody has a full toolbox. But what we need to do is we need to identify what people's tools are that they're good at using, and then we need to incorporate those into the team in a way that the team can use those tools, and everybody understands what everybody's tools are so that we can work together as a team in an effective way. And how this is done in many ways is through the personality tests and the strengths and weaknesses and all. There's a lot of different tools out there to be used, but you should be using some. You should be using one at a minimum, and a lot of times organizations will be using two or one, two, three different kinds of tools, because the more we begin to understand each individual team member's strengths, the tools that they bring, the better we can leverage those as leaders. And that when you are using the tools that are strong for you, that you're good at using, you're more powerful in the group as well. And so if for me as an example, if I fall apart in my world when it comes to like execution, like really getting a program, managing a program, working through the details, like that's not what I do well. And so if the team's going to depend on me to do that, like, well, we're probably going to struggle. But I have certain things that I bring as well that if we leverage those and we bring and the team understands that that's what I'm good at, and that's what the team expects from me, that I can live into that, and then I can be really powerful inside of that team. And that's essentially what we want. And that's unlocking people's superpowers is what I call that, right? Unlocking their superpowers so that we as a team can leverage each individual's superpower.
I love it. Just for our audience in the chat, if there are examples of how you unlock your team's superpowers, would love to hear more about that because that is awesome. That is, I mean, I'd imagine like when that occurs, you build, confidence, you build a sense of appreciation, fulfillment, all of these things, and then it just grows, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm starting to use other tools, and I'm
Yeah.
starting to have a greater impact, for the team overall.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like one of the things that I've most recently we've been working through a personality profile. I'm blanking on the name on it right now. It's terrible, but and one of the things that I'm very good at is or that I enjoy, I should say, and that I'm good at is galvanizing. And so there are moments when people and teams and groups and the organization need to be galvanized. Well, that's a moment that you're going to call on me, maybe, right? To step into that, and then that's really fulfilling for me. And so people have different. I mean, there's people that are very sort of methodic thinkers, and they may not be as strong at, let's say, galvanizing. They're a little bit more cautious. They want to think through things a little bit more, and they're really good for me in helping me sort of slow down and not, blast off into the world at
Yeah.
300 miles an hour, and helping me sort of think through how all of it's going to work, and the blind spots that I don't see, because basically I'm charging forward with things,
Yeah.
and so it's really, and then you have people that are just so good at like ideation, like really thinking and ideating through, and that is just such a powerful skill, such a powerful tool. It's a superpower. And so when we're into that kind of work, that's the person that's going to step up. That's the person that's going to step in, and they're going to feel great about that. Right. But we need to know who those people are, and then we need to call on them at the right moments. In leadership, to me, one of the most important components to leadership is it's your job to know this about each one of your people. Like, you're the one that's supposed to know, and the only way you can know that is by being super, intimate with people, and understanding them, and understanding what makes them tick, and understanding what tools they have. So that to me is leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's inspiring me as a leader to want to have more of those conversations with my people. Like, hey, where do you see yourself going? What's important to you? What's your next step from a career? All of these things, right? So I love that. And you mentioned Life Labs
Yeah.
as this workshop, and this kind of, there's visioning, so you're kind of having some of these conversations, but do you open this up? So is this just for your franchise owners? Is this for employees? Who is this available to? Help us understand that. Like, I'm thinking of a workshop internally at an organization that
Yeah.
we created. Like, does anyone participate? Like, how do you organize that?
Anybody that's associated within Bigby Nation is invited. And
Okay.
so, and there's no charge. I think we do invite outside people to attend, if they want to. I can't remember. I think it's $100. It's pretty nominal, whatever.
Okay.
But
Pays for the coffee, maybe.
yeah, right. And so, but we do make it available to anybody in the system that wants to engage.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, and the workshops are, what's so cool about them is I've been involved in workshops where you have a franchise owner that owns 7 stores and has been in the business for 12 years, and then you also have, in that very same workshop, you might have a 19-year-old barista, and like, because the content is content that I don't see anywhere in the world. Like, where do you have a course that you can take on personal vitality? And so it's not like taking a seminar on, some uh you know business, like finance, or some HR policies or something like that. These are courses that a 19-year-old can be in a course with a 50-year-old person, and they're kind of talking about the same stuff. And to me, that makes them incredibly powerful.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So Mike, this has been great. I really appreciate you just sharing, a few of the, kind of key, ways that you've approached building Big B, and the why behind what you do. I will always remember hey, it's my job to unlock the superpower of our people. So, I mean, that's just going to stick with me forever. So thank you. But as we kind of wrap here, and you're thinking about, hey, some of the things that you're going to be focusing on, as you, through the remainder of the year, how do you love your people well? How do you continue to unlock that superpower? Is there one or two kind of key priorities or key lessons learned that you can share with our audience as we close out today?
Well, I think for me, um, big picture, I'm really starting to work hard on the differentiation between leadership and management. And what I mean by that is that if you're the manager of a business, you're the CEO of an enterprise, and you look at your job as a leader, that your job is to make that business profitable and to return on the equity value of that asset for the owners. To me, that's management. And leadership is about having impact on the world, having positive impact on the world. And so this is where things like purpose come into play. That you as a leader, you are identifying what the purpose of the organization is in order to have powerful, positive impact on the world. But then the magic of that, in terms of unlocking people, is that people want to know that their life's work, when they show up to work and they're engaged, that they're contributing to something that is having a powerful and a positive impact on their community, on the world. And so that's what I want to do. What I'm in the middle of is figuring out how to have that conversation with leaders, which is your job as a leader is not to make the owners of your enterprise richer. Your job as a leader is to have, if you're going to be a true leader, your job as a leader is to have impact on the world. And if you do that, your people will find their work so much more fulfilling. They will be so much more bought into. I didn't know this, but 1 in 5 families can't afford diapers in the world. And a friend of mine learned about this and decided, you know what? That's what we're going to do. As an organization, we're going to impact that. And so they are on this quest to make diapers free in the world, right? Or clothes. And like, so people show up to work and it's like, yeah, we're just trying to make sure that diapers are available, And so it doesn't have to be this leadership quest to improve the world. It doesn't have to be like colonizing Mars or ending world
Right.
hunger. It could be something small in your community or something very specific in your community. But that's what we have to do as leaders, is we have to impact the world in a positive way.
Oh, I love the distinction between managers and leaders. That was very well put, and a perfect way for us to wrap here. Mike, this has been a wonderful episode of the Love Your People podcast. I can't thank you enough for just investing into our community, with the goal to just continue to elevate the employee experience and, to help leaders become worth following, right? And be that people first, help, them create that people first organization. So thank you.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.
Tim, I'm going to hand it to you to lead us in the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Mike. Huge thanks to you for a lot of great inspiration and insight within that. I mean, there's a ton for the audience to unpack and really kind of digest, because there's a lot of great content that we need to take to heart and put into action. That's what I love. So for the audience members that are out there, we are taking open questions. If you haven't submitted yours, please add it to the Q&A. Again, I'll be announcing our Amazon gift card winners at the end for those who have contributed, and we'll draw that. But I do want to get to a few of the questions that are out there, so Mike can field those and answer those for the group. We did have one from Carrie Wood that was regarding why did you and the executive team at Bigbee identify those values or those 4 pillars for Life Labs? What was the
Hmm.
impetus for that?
Well, that was a really, really long conversation and process to get to once we discovered what our purpose was, and then we wanted to that we were committed to supporting you and building a life that you love. Then we started having a really interesting conversation around, well, how can we impact people in that way? How can you go to someone and say, I want to support you in building a life that you love? And so we just through hours and hours of engagement, we talked through, okay, what are the things that you need to have in place to be able to have a life you like? And so knowing who you want to be, working on that and spending time on that, being deliberate about that. We also had this thing around like you have to be able to exceed your basic needs, right? You have to have financial freedom to be able to pursue a life that you love. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're stressed out about, you're going to have an auto repair that's going to put you underwater, like it's really hard to have the freedom to pursue a life that you love. So,
Sure.
it was really a whole bunch of engagement around what are the truly the foundational elements, the creating a sense of belonging, like that is something that is just so powerful. Like, where do you belong in the world? Who do you have in your life? What things do you do in your life where you have this sense of belonging? And we would love to make a part of that work. Like, why can't work be like that tree fort I was talking about, where you show up to work and you're surrounded by people who you love and adore, and it's a supportive and nurturing environment, and everybody's unlocked, and you're pursuing challenges together, like that to me is a sense of belonging. And so, like, why can't we make work that? And so that's how we got to it, is really just a really deep dive into what are the things that you need to have in place in order to be able to build a life you love.
I really enjoyed the four and how they interact and play with each other because I know the know who you want to be really helps me identify where I want to belong, because a lot of times you get it upside down where you're trying to belong somewhere that doesn't really make you feel welcomed. You're trying to fit into something, and once you identify what you want to be, that really helps you get to a better place of belonging. So I think they're fantastic, and I like how they interplay. Thank you for sharing on that. Um, on our podcast, we talk a lot about the importance of leaders and leadership with an employee engagement efforts. How do you, Mike, prioritize your personal growth and well-being as a leader?
Well, how do I mean, I've got a whole chapter in my second book around, and it's like one of the things that I do, and I do a lot of it, is I read an absolute ton. And I don't understand leaders that aren't reading, and not just scrolling articles and getting the bullets, but like sinking deeply into other leaders' work. And,
Mhm.
so when you read a book, like, I talk about how when you read a book, a lot, I hear people talking about how they'll read the first couple of chapters, they got the premise, they put the book down, right? Or they read the Cliff Notes version, right? But like, generally speaking, when you're reading a book, like that last chapter after everything is like the chapter. So if you put the book down, so I read a ton. I read a ton. I belong to a bunch. I belong to three CEO type communities. I belong to something called Tugboat. I belong to something called YPO, and I belong to something called the Stakeholder Business Society. And these are just communities of CEOs of like leaders, and I spend a lot of time in that space, learning from other people, talking to other people, and so, that's something that I've made a huge investment in, and a huge part of my life. And like, I think every leader should be doing that, like really engaging the communities that are out there to learn from.
I'm hearing a theme that you really enjoy the community learning for yourself, but then the way you advance your franchisees with the forum that you bring them together. That community learning is super important to Big B as an organization and to you as a person. So that's really good information. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't want to speak for you, but I think I'm hearing
Yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, you know, as John said earlier, when learning from others, it's like you have to engage and learn from others, right? And so he's been through things that I haven't, right? And so
Hmm.
if we're in a community group together, a forum or whatever together, I'm going to learn his experiences, and then I'm going to be able to reach out to him when I'm having something happening in my world and get his intake, get his take and get his insights. And so, that is, and you've, but the key there though is like I can't just cold call a CEO up the street and get that. I have to have a relationship with John. I have to be able, and that's what these groups
Hmm.
do for you. And that's what we're trying to do with these forums is you get to know people, you get to be intimate with people, and then when you have problems, you have this group that you can lean on and that you can learn from.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more. That's awesome. I'm going to give you a quick chance to plug something. We have a question from Brianna. Do you ever offer the Life Lab workshops in Canada or virtually?
They're all virtual at this point. And
Okay.
so, yeah, just if you want, you can ping me. LinkedIn is a good place to get me, or my email is mike@bigb.com. And just you can send me a note, and then I'll get you. I can forward you to the right person to get signed up if you want to engage those.
Great plug. Great plug. We got about a couple more minutes, and I'm going to wrap it up. But I have one question that's personal from me. Um, you have a very relatable and common sense style that I think's a key part of your leadership. When I've had discussions with you, how do you leverage that genuineness and I don't want to call it simplicity, but the keep it simple philosophy to foster growth within your people and your organization?
Well, I just um, I really try not to filter. I really try not to filter. I just try to say it, whatever's going on for me, or whatever I'm thinking. And that's, I think that's risky for a lot of folks. But and the other thing that I really work hard to do is I really truly try to invest in someone that I'm trying to build a relationship with, like, and be deliberate about that, right? Like it's okay to make an investment, and if there are people directly on your team, you have to be making an investment. Like that's you have to be doing it. You have to invest early. You have to invest aggressively in them in order to get them to build that trust. So, you know, uh, I don't know. I'm not sure. My take on the world is pretty simple, and I've always said that good leaders are good people, and there's just a direct correlation there, and I believe that. And so I do. I just work hard to try to keep things as simple as I can, and kind of keep the basic tenets in place around being a good person.
That's fantastic and great advice for everyone out there. It just the more complicated we make it, sometimes the filters start to go up and get put in place, and all of a sudden it influences some unintended consequences. So uh, that is fantastic advice. What a great session! I want to thank you again, Mike. Before I wrap up, I want to make sure that I announce everyone out there. Congratulations to the winners. We got Rosario Bibiano, sorry. And then I want to say the other one is Brianna Wardrop. We're going to go ahead and be in contact with you shortly to coordinate the delivery of those $50 Amazon gift cards. Those are real fantastic prizes. Thank you for your participation. Also, thank you to Mike McFall for his outstanding input and feedback during the session. Our audience was thrilled, and we had a lot of great, thoughtful questions. For those of you who are receiving our continuing education credit, You're seeing on the screen right now the SHRM and HRCI codes. Those are going to remain up for another minute or so after we close the session. But for everyone, don't forget to subscribe to our Love Your People podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your favorite platforms. You can access them and you'll be registered instantly and ready to subscribe to get to the next one. You can also just simply scan the QR code on the screen to check out our show page. Thank you all for being here, and continue to lead with your heart. We appreciate it.